Hello and welcome to Culture Cafe, a rundown of literary, film, and music history, this time for the week of August 31st. You know how it works. If you enjoy Culture Cafe, hit the like button. If you want notifications for when videos are posted, please subscribe to my channel. Generally, I try to post new videos on Sunday, but things didn't work out this time. So pour yourself a cup of coffee in whatever form you choose. If it's not too late in the day, of course, sit back and let's talk about some cultural history. August 31st, 1946, The New Yorker dedicated an entire issue to telling the stories of 6 survivors of the attack on Hiroshima. John Hersey's landmark work of reporting took 4 years of interviewing and composition. It was originally meant to be a 4-part series, but the editors of The New Yorker chose to instead devote an entire issue towards the piece. It was later published in book form later the same year. It is regarded as one of the earliest examples of new journalism in which the storytelling techniques of fiction are adapted to nonfiction reporting. August 31st, 1968, Decca Records released what has been called the Rolling Stones' most political song, Street Fightin' Man, written after Mick Jagger attended a March 1968 anti-war rally at London's U.S. Embassy, during which mounted police attempted to control a crowd of 25,000 people. The single was kept out of the U.S. Top 40, reaching number 48, because many radio stations refused to play it based on what were perceived as subversive lyrics. September 1st, 1925, saxophonist Art Pepper was born in Gardena, California. He was an American jazz musician, mostly known as an alto saxophonist. He occasionally performed and recorded on tenor saxophone, clarinet, his first instrument, and bass clarinet. Active primarily in West Coast jazz, Pepper first came to prominence in Stan Kenton's big band. He was known for his emotionally charged performances and several stylistic shifts throughout his career. Speaking of his career, it was repeatedly interrupted by several prison stints stemming from his addiction to heroin, but he managed to have several productive comebacks. Remarkably, his substance abuse and legal travails did not affect the quality of his recordings, which maintained a high level of musicianship throughout his career until his death in June 15th, 1982. September 1st, 1952, Hemingway's The Old Man and the Sea was published in Life magazine. The magazine sold 5 million copies in only 2 days and launched Hemingway to new levels of celebrity. 2 years later, it was awarded the Pulitzer Prize. Set in the Gulf Stream waters off the coast of Cuba, the story revolves around Santiago, an aging Cuban fisherman, and his epic battle with a giant marlin. Santiago, who hasn't caught a fish in 84 days, sets out on a journey far into the sea. He hooks a massive marlin, marking the zenith of his fishing career. Santiago fights to bring back the marlin to shore while battling fatigue, hunger, and sharks. Hemingway's novella reflects the author's fascination with themes of courage, resilience, and the human condition. Written in the aftermath of World War II, the story can be seen as a metaphor for the struggles and triumphs of individuals confronting immense challenges. Santiago's solitary quest for the marlin mirrors the perseverance needed to overcome adversity, making the novel a timeless exploration of the indomitable human spirit. The novel has been adapted into various films and stage productions, including the 1958 film directed by John Sturges and starring Spencer Tracy. September 1st, 1954, Paramount Pictures releases Rear Window, directed by none other than Alfred Hitchcock, and starring James Stewart, Grace Kelly, Raymond Burr, and Thelma Ritter. The film is based on the short story It Had to Be Murder by Cornell Woolrich. Rear Window is shot almost entirely from within one room and from the point of view outside the window. It is rightfully so considered by many filmgoers, critics, and scholars to be one of Hitchcock's best films as well as one of the greatest films ever made. It received 4 Academy Award nominations and was ranked number 42 in AFI's 100 Years, 100 Movies list and number 48 on the 10th anniversary edition, and in 1997 was added to the United States Film Registry in the Library of Congress as being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. September 1st, 1978 marks the premiere of George Romero's Dawn of the Dead, a sequel of sorts of Romero's seminal Night of the Living Dead. Noted for its satirical portrayal of consumerism, Dawn of the Dead has received widespread critical acclaim since its initial release and is widely considered to be one of the greatest horror films ever made, as well as the greatest zombie film. Like its predecessor, it has garnered a large international cult following. In 2008, it was chosen by Empire magazine as one of the 500 greatest movies of all time, along with Night of the Living Dead. Dawn of the Dead was followed by 4 official sequels beginning in 1985 with Day of the Dead, and a separate series of unofficial Italian-made sequels beginning with 1979's Zombie, otherwise known as Zombie 2, directed by gore master Lucio Fulci. It has also inspired a 2004 remake directed by Zack Snyder, as well as numerous parodies and pop culture references in other media such as Shaun of the Dead, Dead Rising, and Left 4 Dead. Okay, I have sort of a tangential question for viewers. Have you ever been able to sit through the aforementioned movie Zombie? It is obviously not for the faint of heart or weak of stomach. Me, I wasn't able to sit through it. I left the theater. There are very few times I have ever left a movie theater before the movie was over, but that is one of them. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. September 2nd, 1918, Pulitzer Prize winning author Alan Drury was born in Houston, Texas. Drury is best known for his political novel Advise and Consent, published in 1959. Drury wrote 11 other novels, all centering around Washington politics, although none of them gained the renown of Advise and Consent. Drury died on September 2nd, 1998. September 2nd, 1928, pianist Horace Silver, born in Norwalk, Connecticut. After years of working with Stan Getz and Art Blakey, he started as a freelance musician and composer. In 1964, he created a new quintet featuring Joe Henderson on tenor saxophone and Carmel Jones on trumpet. This band recorded most of Silver's best-known album, Song for My Father, which reached number 95 on the Billboard's 200 in 1965 and was added to the Grammy Hall of Fame in 1999. You might recognize the hook in the title track. Both Steely Dan based the intro of Ricky Don't Lose That Number, as did Stevie Wonder with Don't You Worry About a Thing. In 2007, it was revealed that Silver had Alzheimer's disease. He died of natural causes in New Rochelle, New York, on June 18, 2014, aged 85. September 2nd, 1937, the film Prisoner of Zenda, based on the novel and play by Anthony Hope, starring Ronald Colman, Madeleine Carroll, and Douglas Fairbanks Jr., is released. It tells the story of Englishman Rudolph Rassendyll, played by Ronald Colman, on vacation in a small fictional European country, where he discovers his resemblance to the nation's royal heir, apparent Rudolph V. When the king-to-be is drugged and incapacitated, Rassendyll must impersonate him so that the scheming Duke Michael, played by Raymond Massey, always a great villain, can't assume the throne. To further complicate matters, Rassendyll starts to fall for Rudolph V's intended bride. If you recall, it is the favorite film of the character V from the 2005 film V for Vendetta. He reenacts one of the sword fights from the film while he watches it on television. September 3rd, 1902 marks the birthday of Mantan Moreland. He was a character actor with a fairly long career from the early 1930s to the early 70s. He was mostly cast as comic relief with his bulging eyes and cackling laugh. His best-known role, at least to the fans of old movies, was Birmingham Brown, chauffeur to Charlie Chan, the great detective. By the 1950s, racial attitudes began to change, and with the rise of civil rights movement in the mid-60s, what was once considered hilarious was now interpreted as offensive. Mantan and others were unfairly ostracized and ridiculed by Hollywood for their past negative portrayals, and yet he was an incredibly gifted comedian and comic actor. One of Moreland's last films was Jack Hill's incredibly bizarre cult classic Spider Baby, or The Maddest Story Ever Told, from 1957. Moreland died of cerebral hemorrhage on September 28, 1973, in Hollywood, California, at the age of 71. He was inducted into the National Multicultural Western Heritage Museum Hall of Fame in 2004, and rightfully so. September 2nd, 1945, The Third Man, directed by Sir Carol Reed, starring Joseph Cotten, Alida Valli, and Orson Welles, is released in the United Kingdom. Set in post-World War II Allied-occupied Vienna, the film centers on American writer Holly Martins, played by Joseph Cotten, who arrives in the city to accept a job with his friend Harry Lime, Orson Welles, obviously, only to learn that he has died. Martin stays in Vienna to investigate Lime's death, becoming infatuated with Lime's grieving girlfriend, Anna. The Third Man is considered one of the greatest films of all time, celebrated for its acting, musical score, and atmospheric cinematography. And you can't go wrong with Orson Welles and Joseph Cotten, at least that early in their careers. September 3rd, 1963 marks the birthday of Malcolm Gladwell. He's a Canadian journalist, author, and speaker who has written 8 books and has been a New Yorker staff writer since 1966. He's also the host of the podcast Revisionist History. If you ever get a chance to listen to it, it's pretty fascinating. And co-founded Pushkin Industries. Gladwell's work explores a range of topics, including psychology, history, sociology, human behavior, and pop culture. His books include The Tipping Point, What the Dog Saw, and Outliers. September 3rd, 1978, Walter Becker, co-founder and guitarist for the U.S. band Steely Dan, died aged 67. Steely Dan released its first album, Can't Buy a Thrill, in 1972 and had the 1973 U.S. number 11 single, Reelin' in the Years, and 9 other U.S. top 30 hits. Steely Dan's Two Against Nature won a Grammy in 2001 for Album of the Year. Thus, Becker also produced records for Ricky Lee Jones, China Crisis, and Michael Franks. September 3rd, 1980, legendary actor Peter O'Toole returned to the stage after a 17-year absence from the theater in the cursed role of Macbeth. O'Toole was apparently spooked by the legendary curse of the Scottish play and refused to let anyone in the cast use it by its name. The production suffered from blunders and bad luck, and O'Toole's performance was universally panned by critics, with some calling it gruesome and others heroically ludicrous. Nonetheless, the play still had a successful run, and theatergoers attended without fail. And it was Peter O'Toole. How could you go wrong? Even a bad movie with Peter O'Toole is a good movie. September 4th, 1908, American author Richard Wright was born in Roxie, Mississippi. He was an American author of novels, short stories, poems, and nonfiction. Much of his literature concerns racial themes, especially related to the plight of the African Americans during the late 19th to mid 20th centuries, suffering discrimination and violence. His best-known works include the novella collection Uncle Tom's Children, 1938, the novel Native Son, 1940, and the memoir Black Boy, 1945. Wright's works, especially his most significant novels, Native Son and Black Boy, exposed the plight of modern African Americans and influenced race relations in the Civil Rights era. Wright's novel Native Son was the first book written by an African American author chosen for the Book of the Month Club. On November 28, 1960, Wright went to the Eugene Guibes Clinic in Paris for a periodic checkup of a long-standing amoebic dysentery condition. He died in the clinic that night of sudden heart failure. He was 52 years old. He was interred in Père Lachaise Cemetery. Wright's daughter, Julia, and his close friend and fellow expatriate, Ollie Harrington, were both suspicious of the circumstances of Wright's death and alleged that the author may have been murdered by the U.S. government. September 5th, 1750, Scottish poet Robert Fergusson was born in Edinburgh. Fergusson excelled in writing poetry in the Scottish dialect, but he suffered from severe depression. After sustaining a head injury, he was committed to a mental hospital where he died at the young age of 24. His short life had a large impact on Scottish readers, though, as well as on Robert Burns, who used his style of poetry to influence his own, becoming the most famous Scottish poet of all time. September 5th, 1905 marks the birthday of Arthur Koestler. He was an Austro-Hungarian-born author and journalist. Koestler was born in Budapest and was educated in Austria, apart from his early school years. In 1931, Koestler joined the Communist Party of Germany, but resigned in 1938 after becoming disillusioned with Stalinism. Having moved to Britain in 1940, Koestler published his novel Darkness at Noon, an anti-totalitarian work that gained him international fame. Over the next 43 years, Kessler espoused many political causes and wrote novels, memoirs, biographies, and numerous essays. In 1949, Kessler began secretly working with the British Cold War anti-communist propaganda department known as the Information Research Department, IRD, which would republish and distribute many of his works and also fund his activities. You might recall that George Orwell also worked with the IRD. In 1968, he was awarded the Sonning Prize for his outstanding contribution to European culture. In 1972, he was made a commander of the Order of the British Empire. September 6, 1666, the Great Fire of London finally burned out, resulting in a devastating loss to 70,000 of the city's 80,000 homes. Famous diarist Samuel Pepys recorded some of the fire's devastation in his diary. September 6, 1879, marks the birthday of Max Schreck, who, as many of you know, portrayed the vampire Count Orlok in F.W. Murnau's silent film Nosferatu, released in 1922. He acted in several other silent films, but this is the one he is most known for. I assume that many of his other films are considered lost. About the film Nosferatu, not the new one, this old silent one. F.W. Murnau based the script on Bram Stoker's Dracula, but he did it without gaining permission from Stoker's widow, Florence. He thought changing the names of the characters, for instance, Dracula to Orlok, Jonathan Harker to Jonathan Hutter, well, it wasn't enough. Florence Stoker sued Murnau for copyright infringement, and she won. A judge ordered all the prints of the film to be destroyed. Yep. So someone apparently didn't agree with that the prints should be destroyed and took several prints without anyone's knowledge. We are fortunate to that person or persons in that sense to be even able to watch Nosferatu. Once again, that wraps it up for this week. Thanks again for watching. I will be back next week, also probably Sunday this time, with another Culture Cafe. Until then, please support your local independent bookstores and local public library. Be safe, be kind, and keep reading. See you next week. This has been a Java Jive production.